First question: how to explain the miraculous coincidence of the rotational speeds of the Earth and Moon around their axes, so that the Moon is always turned towards the Earth on only one side. Second question: why doesn't the rule of light and shadow propagation on the surface of round objects work in the case of the Earth's natural satellite? And finally, the third question: why does lunar gravity attract millions of tons of water during tides, but cannot attract dust in the air during the same ebb tide? In reality, the topic of the Moon is simply teeming with strangeness and inconsistencies. So before we begin our fascinating journey, I ask you to like this video in advance and of course, subscribe to my channel. So, continuing with the view of Asgard, there is no moon. Allow me to refresh your memory with stories of official science that the rulers of this world have allowed the unwashed masses to know. These facts are not just accessible, but they are forcefully made accessible, meaning they are injected under pressure into the minds of slaves even in kindergarten, so that the truth doesn't spill out on its own. The Moon is Earth's natural satellite, always showing us the same side. There is no atmosphere on the Moon, hence it is bitterly cold at night and hellishly hot during the day. The Moon is 4 times smaller than the Earth and is 384,000 kilometers away. The Moon is covered in craters, easily visible even through an amateur telescope. The Moon shines at night with the reflected light of the sun. Evil sorcerers cast spells during the waxing moon, while good witches dispel these spells during the waning moon. The Moon pulls the ocean's water and influences the evolution of women. No one has ever seen the far side of the Moon, except for American astronauts. Of course, if you're going to fly to the Moon, why not go to the far side, kill 2 birds with 1 stone? The presented photo is taken straight from Wikipedia. Notice the oddity: given today's level of development of electronic telescopes, the world's main encyclopedia posts a black and white photo of the Moon. I'll tell you more. You won't find a color photo of it anywhere. Photoshop doesn't count. Even the eye sees the Moon as pale yellow, but the lenses of pseudoscience insist that the Moon is black and white. Well, that's just for starters. As is known, the grander the lie, the more readily it is believed. And it is also known that as soon as the truth starts to seep through, Hollywood immediately makes a movie. It seems that in the middle of the last century, the world's scientific luminaries stumbled upon something they shouldn't have known, and a rebellion was brewing among astrophysicists, undermining the stability of the throne predictor. So, Hollywood quickly concocted a landing of clowns in diving suits in a pavilion with black wallpaper. According to the concept of herd management, creating a lie in one version is dangerous because the crowd is diverse. Therefore, the scriptwriters of the Moon spectacle cobbled together several versions of the lie, to each his own belief. The Moon is an artificial satellite made of titanium. Aliens live inside the Moon and are about to attack us. Our president's bases are on the dark side of the Moon. American astronauts saw a crashed intergalactic ship, hence the silence on air for a whole minute, and so on and so forth. Such nonsense is stamped out every month, just to divert the attention of the wise from the truth. But the most exotic version is the writing in the Deep Book, where the Moon is presented as a giant generator called Destiny or Lunar Rainbow. But more on that in other articles. Why can't space corporations provide real images of the Moon from Earth's orbit? NASA spends billions of dollars on their research programs, and the results of these programs are more than doubtful. Judge for yourself. A video recording of the Moon's movements around the Earth by a spacecraft in July 2015 was published on NASA's website. It shows that very far side of the Moon. But there are at least 2 bits. First, in this video, the Moon wandering around the Earth did not turn a degree around its axis, as if a circle was simply inserted on a computer and given motion. But that's not all. If you zoom in on the section where the Moon flies over the Earth and slightly increase the contrast, you can see that the Moon is semi-transparent. So why create low-quality computer graphics with blatant blunders? So what about the Americans? Was there no moon landing? Think bigger. There was nowhere to land because there is no moon. Rather, there is a pale yellow crescent in the night sky, but the Moon that they are selling us does not and cannot exist. Let's return to the beginning of the article and analyze the facts that are forcibly injected. among them are inconsistencies that are incompatible with the life of the lunar myth. So, let's start the hit parade of blunders about the moon from the mouths of official science. Slip-up number 6. The moon shines with reflected sunlight. Really? Try hitting a ball outside and shining a powerful flashlight, even a xenon one, on it. Does it illuminate surrounding objects? No. But the moon does, and quite brightly. During a full moon, you can comfortably read a book, but it's not just about the ability to illuminate. Look more closely at the ball. In the center, there's a light glare from the flashlight because any spherical object reflects light unevenly, always with a glare in the center. This is physics, and it's relentless. Apparently, the moon isn't familiar with this law, which any professional photographer will confirm. This leads to a logical conclusion. Either the moon is flat, hence no glare, or it shines with its own light, which also wouldn't produce a glare. Moving on to the moon's lighting. Why, when the moon is a thin crescent, is its circumference outlined with a light contour? What is this light? Even if the moon had an atmosphere that scattered sunlight, there wouldn't be a glowing outline. We see the night sky as black on Earth. Science has an excuse for this, and calls it the moon's ashen glow. The ashen glow of the moon, the glow of the non-sunlit surface of the moon, is created by sunlight scattered by Earth, then reflected back to Earth by the moon. Thus, the path of the moon's ashen glow photons is sun, Earth, moon, Earth. Reading this quote raises two problems. First, one needs to understand the meaning of this complex phrase. Second, to believe in the incredible absurdity of the described scheme. What did you expect? Lying on a planetary scale is incredibly difficult. So they have to peddle such nonsense and pin medals on scientists for sensational discoveries. The ashen glow is the second argument in favor of the moon having its own light source. Look at the photo again. It's a real lampshade. And the last point about lighting. The brain completely boils over when the moon's crescent points its horns towards the sunset or even downwards towards Earth. You can observe this oddity several times a week. Photos from below are removed from the internet because they are too dangerous for the herd. What light, may I ask, does the moon reflect in such cases? In general, there are quite a few questions for astronomers regarding the moon's lighting, but they are simply ignored because we're told from childhood to watch our step and not the sky. Slip-up number 5. Disproportion. Many have noticed how huge the moon looks on the horizon, but as it rises, it magically shrinks. Scientists justify this by saying that our eyes are crooked and it just seems that way to us. They even suggest covering the moon with a rifle sight first at the horizon, then at its zenith, assuring that the ratio to the sight will not change. Admit it, a crude excuse for architects of such a delicate mechanism. Slip-up number 4. We always see the same side of the moon. Any rational person has at least once asked the question, why does the moon always show the same face? How must the elliptical orbits of the moon, Earth, and Sun be calculated around each other, considering the mutual attraction of all these objects? Even in the most ideal conditions, over 100,000 or million years, the moon's course should have deviated by at least a degree. But this does not happen. Especially since there are no ideal conditions, especially in the harsh conditions of space. Even solar wind should have interfered with the stability of the moon's position. It almost begs the conclusion that it was glued on like a postage stamp. Slip-up number 3. Tides. As science tells us, the moon is not just magnetically attached to the Earth, but it also pulls the oceans like a blanket. It's like a tightrope walker balancing over an abyss while winding and unwinding a rope with a weight on his arm, without moving at all. Moreover, if the moon has such a huge influence on the world ocean, then the connection here is two-way, so the ocean should affect the moon. Therefore, any tsunami should have shaken the stability of the moon, which has never happened. Slip-up number 2. Lunar craters. Solar wind, electromagnetic waves, the gravity of other celestial bodies, and the tides of the oceans, all these are mere child's play compared to the impact of a club, that is, the bombardment by meteorites and other space debris, and the craters are not insignificant, as astronomy teaches us. Such an impact could not only spin the moon like a top, but also kick it off its previous orbit in such a way that all the seas and oceans on Earth would rage, and another flood would be inevitable. For those who are not aware, Earth's atmosphere is bombarded by thousands of small and medium-sized stones every day, which simply burn up in the atmosphere. Considering that the moon has no atmosphere, it should be spinning in the sky like a ball in a pond. But no, the moon stands as if rooted in its parabolic rails. Blunder number 1. Full moon. This is the most foolish blunder, a control shot to the head of the lunar myth. Any sane person without any instruments and a doctorate in physics can shatter the myth of the moon to pieces by asking just one question: at whose expense does the moon shine during a full moon? Look carefully at the full moon. It's a perfect circle. And from where should the light fall so that the sphere is reflected as a perfect circle? Correct, from behind us. But here's the catch: there is no sun behind us, and it cannot be there. Behind us is the Earth, and the sun is behind the Earth. Can someone explain to me, whose damn light is the moon reflecting during a full moon? And what does official science think about this? A full moon is a phase of the moon in which the difference in ecliptic longitude of the sun and moon is 180 degrees. This means that the plane passing through the sun, Earth, and moon is perpendicular to the plane of the ecliptic. If all three objects are on the same line, a lunar eclipse occurs. The moon in a full moon appears as a correct glowing disk. Note, nobody pulled Wiki's tongue. The moon in a full moon appears as a correct glowing disk. If you give Wiki's twisted quotes a human face, you get the following. During a full moon, the sun is strictly behind us horizontally, but slightly peeks out from behind the Earth vertically. Strange thing. Wiki doesn't provide a diagram of such a complex phenomenon. And not without reason, because it would look something like this. The slightest shift of the sun to the side turns the moon into an incomplete disk. A full moon is impossible because it contradicts the principles of light reflection. Behind us, the sun is covered by the Earth. Therefore, the moon should not be visible at all, and such a phenomenon is imposed. Total lunar eclipse. So, what do we do with the full moon, which spat on the textbook of physics and astronomy and continues to hang in the sky regardless of what is written about it? As we have seen, the official version of the moon's device is not comparable to the life of the moon itself. This means that it is arranged differently. As for the phenomenon of the full moon, one of two conditions must necessarily be met. The moon must be flat, like a road sign. Then the deviation of the sun by a few degrees will not play a role in the illumination, and we will see a perfect circular disk, and the moon must shine with its own light. Then it doesn't matter at all where the sun is. Contrary to these two conditions, a flying object named moon cannot exist. On the net, there is a video on our topic, shot on a camera through a telescope. The author claims that we see a hologram in the sky, which projects with interference. The whole point of this video is precisely in these interferences, which are well captured. The authenticity of this video is unknown. It might be another video trick, but it's interesting to watch. As the saying goes, if something is happening, it means someone needs it. So what is the moon, and why is it covered with such a layer of lies? The answer, as always, is not hidden. It's right under our noses. In the Bible, deluded astronomers have no time to read it, and their status forbids them to delve into, and especially to rely on religious heresy. That's on one hand. On the other hand, the deluded flock, who are forbidden to ask questions and think at all, especially about astronomy. Thus, they live in parallel worlds and never intersect, the two fragmented parts of one herd, science and religion. So, the Bible, the book of Genesis, chapter 1.
And God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, and for seasons, and for days, and years." And God created two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And God set them in the firmament of heaven to give light upon the earth.
As we see, the biblical description of the moon is complete absurdity from the point of view of official science. The Bible insists that the lights are fixed to one firmament. Therefore, the distance to the sun, the moon, and all stars is the same. The Bible is rewritten every generation, but for some reason, they never removed information about the structure of our sky. Apparently, they left it just for laughs. The whole joke is that the absurd biblical model suddenly stops being funny, as it explains all the above-mentioned oddities. Against facts in the sky, you cannot argue, so they must be studied and laid out in a mosaic, which is what we are doing now. So, based on the above elaboration of blenders, the following conclusions can be made. The moon is a luminary, which in its dimensions is far from those officially stated. In shape, either a sphere hemisphere or a flat circle, but definitely with its own source of light. In other words, it's a flying cinema. Spectators sit on the ground and the screen floats in the air, on which a light representation of the surface with all its craters is projected, as well as a light beam is adjusted to form the required phase from the edge to the full moon. The only fundamental difference from a conventional cinema is that the image is projected not from behind our heads, but from the back side of the screen. Those who have not lost the logical thread of our conversation will now ask a reasonable question: how then does the moon have such a powerful impact on Earth's biosphere if it is just a dummy? After all, the phases of the moon do indeed affect many factors: the growth of hair, nails, seedlings, and beds. People connected with magic are firmly tied to the phases of the moon. And for what is all this theater of the absurd? Moreover, with such complexities in bamboozling the brains of the population? The answer again is in the Bible for signs. The moon is just an indicator, like a car's blinking turn signal showing that the driver is about to turn. So, the phases of the moon inform the magicians on Earth, in what phase the central processor of our planet. We conclude the second chapter. Thank you all for watching this video. What do you think about the moon? Did American astronauts really travel to the moon, or is it all a fabrication? Be sure to write your opinion in the comments. I would also be grateful for a like and a subscription to my channel. See you soon.